Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video gonna be really exciting. It's gonna be a real fun because we're gonna look at the best epic fantasy on Goodreads together. This list I found, I will put it in the comment below. It is under Listopia on Goodreads. And I guess if you have a Goodreads account, you can vote for your best epic fantasy book. So I don't think this one will be like the officially the best epic fantasy books recommended by Goodreads. Rather, it is like for people vote for their best in their mind. The result begins with a very interesting, very strict definition on epic fantasy. Epic fantasy is generally serious in tone and often epic in scope, dealing with themes of grand struggle against supernatural evil forces. Some typical characteristics of epic fantasy include fantastical elements such as elves, fairies, dwarves, mages or sorcery, wizards or magicians, invented languages, quests, coming-of-age themes, and multi-volume narratives. Under this very strict definition, they kick out Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, sadly, and they only include A Song of Ice and Fire and Hobbit and Lord of the Rings as a series rather than individual books. Otherwise, the results for the top 20 will be all about this series. And then I searched it on this page, but I have already found 2 Stormlight Archive books. And I mean, I'm really confused by the standard of this vote. Without further ado, shall we dive into this list together? By the way, I'm like looking at my iPad, so I keep looking down. Don't mind me. Top 2, are you surprised? We have got A Song of Ice and Fire and Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. I mean, do I need to explain much? I think both of them, without a doubt, very successful. They are well loved by this community. Even though if you're not into reading at all, you would definitely hear about them because they both got really successful media adaptation. Lord of the Rings is like the father of modern epic fantasy series. It shows you what you can do within a fantasy world, how you can write it. You can literally see a lot of modern epic fantasy series adopting this kind of model. Of course, we as modern fantasy readers, jumping back to this series, The Founding Stone, we will see so many things that are different from what is on trend now, but still, what an inspiration to modern authors. Then for A Song of Ice and Fire, what a unique, complicated world that is full of politics, history, cultures, magic, dragon, different races of characters that got their own goals. I would say in terms of the scale of this project, I can hardly find any other series that can compete to it. Speaking of this series, where is the next novel? It's been too long. Ranking the 3rd, I am actually quite surprised by it. It is the first book of the King Killer Chronicle, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I haven't read this series yet and I think I got a copy of it on this shelf. This one is always on any fantasy series recommendation video, but I might be wrong here. I think this book is kind of fading out recently, and I think the gap between the 2nd and the 3rd book is quite long. I have heard of what is the charm about this series is the beautiful writing style. I am the type of readers that would like a complete series or like new release, so the chance for me to get into this series would be one day. If I have time, I will get to it. 4th, of course, is our Brandon Sanderson. It's The Way of Kings, first book of the Stormlight Archive. Speaking of Brandon Sanderson, maybe we should talk about The Final Empire, the first book of the Mistborn series, because it is also on the list. It ranks the 7th. I read both of them maybe 4 years ago, so my memory may be a bit foggy about them. If we are just looking at these 2 series, I would say The Final Empire is more attracting to me. It is the first Brandon Sanderson book that I have ever read, and I can still vividly remember how Finn burned the metal and push and pull around the city. The Way of King, don't get me wrong, is still great, but I think instead of just looking at the first book of this series, I think the whole plot, the scale, the characters, everything is improving throughout these 4 books. Then on the 5th, we have The Chronicles of Narnia. Why would I say Nadia is Nadia by C.S. Lewis? I don't know why they include the whole series rather than the individual books for this one. I'm really confused by it, to be honest. Confession time, I have never read this series nor watching the movie series. I heard of it when I was really young. I'm not sure, have you heard about it? the movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I hope it is the right sequence. Other than this, I know nothing about this series, and I think nowadays people don't really talk about it, so maybe we should give it a pass. I know the sixth, it is the first book of The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, The Eye of the World. I am only halfway through the series, if you can't tell by here already, so there are still things that I don't get to know yet. But I am shocked by the fact that it ranks so high on this list. Don't get me wrong here, if we are ranking the whole series, it's definitely worth this place, but just the first book? Really? You can see the heavy inspiration of The Lord of the Rings in the first book. There are quite a lot of resemblance, and the ending for me feels a bit rushed. But then the later books takes off and reminding you less of The Lord of the Rings, and it just gets better and better. The plot, the magic, the characters, the heroes and the villains, everything just improving throughout the series. Speaking of this series, I really can't wait to get back to it and complete it, hopefully in next year. Fingers crossed. You watched this far already, so if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Subscribe to my channel, Fantasy, so you can see me more on your homepage on YouTube. Then we should jump back to this list. On the 8th, we have his Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. Once again, I am surprised because we are seeing the whole series rather than individual books. I think this one is leaning on the YA side, so I didn't expect you would see one here. BBC maybe 2 years ago has done a drama series based on this series, and I only finished the first episode. There was a sloth, some talking animals, and then an hot air balloon maybe, or an aircraft. Terrible memory. Around that time, I remember I pop into Waterstones and see an omnibus about this series, a 3-in-1 book, but I don't think I will check on this series because it is more on the YA side. 9th, we have a Justice, the first book of the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, Assassin's Apprentice. I would say this ranking is fair, but I am just so confused by it. To me, what's good about an epic fantasy series is that us as a reader gonna go for this crazy roller coaster ride for like maybe 3 books or even over 10 books long journey. Up until this point, we have seen The Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire, maybe his Dark Materials and the Chronicles of Narnia. Why do I keep saying Nadia? They are ranked together as a series, but then most of the rest on this list is like the first book of a series. Then what is our standard? You know what I mean? How should I rate the first book of a series? What make it great? I'm really confused. I think I completed the Farseer trilogy maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I think what's great about this trilogy is that our emotions gonna grow with the journey of Fizz in these 3 books. If we are just looking at the first book of the Farseer trilogy, would I say it is a great book that I would recommend to everybody? I'm not sure. But across the trilogy, with what Fizz has gone through, I would say it is an emotional ride. Let alone, there are 6 more books about him. At some point, I will definitely come back to the series, but no time is promised here. And then on the 10th, we have the first book of the Inheritance Cycle, Arrogant by Christopher Paolini. I have seen this dragon head many times and I haven't checked this series out yet. I have heard about it and the review is actually quite mixed. It is like a very classic epic fantasy series and a bit cliche, a bit predictable. In short, I think it is a story about a boy and a dragon. But with the latest book, I think it is called Murder. The whole series would get better at this point, but I mean, it is like a 4-book investment. I'm not sure whether I have time for it yet. The 11th is an interesting one, the first book of The Gentleman Bastard by Scott Lynch, The Lies of Locke Lamora, the one that I have DNF'd. I read this one maybe 3 years ago because of the recommendation on YouTube at that time. This book was really popular some years back and you can literally see this one on every recommendation along with The Name of the Wind. But I just couldn't connect with the characters. I have some problems with the writing style and the arrangement of the flashbacks. I think this is the only epic fantasy series that I have ever DNF'd in my life, so well done me. I haven't read the 12th and it is the first book of The Dark Tower by Stephen King, the Gunslinger. Again, another really popular series always recommended by other booktubers. This one is like really different from what you would expect from Stephen King, an author that is so good at crime, mystery, thriller, horror. I don't think this Dark Tower series that got like 7 books is like so leaning towards to that side. So I would like to check this series out, or even just checking the works by Stephen King. I'm tempted. The 13th is a really interesting one. It is the first book of the Sword of Truth by Terry Goodkind, Witch's First Rule. I haven't read this book yet, but it is really interesting because it got so many votes, 124,000. But when you click on this book and look at the review, wow, a lot of them is actually quite terrible, and I need some help here, guys. Is it a troll? After this, we have something that we should know, the first book of the First Law trilogy, The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. Honestly, I really want to get to this series because I have heard a lot of brilliant reviews about it. Mostly praise the characters in this series, not just this trilogy. They are not perfect and every single one of them is just so unique. I think in different novellas or in different novels or trilogy, we're gonna follow different sets of characters, how they're gonna work through a crisis, I guess. But I have heard that the first book, The Blade Itself, is a bit average because it is like we're just looking at the characters and there is not too much plot in it. I think I might be able to start this series in early 2025, and I hope that I can finish the whole series in the same year. On the 15th, we have another Tolkien's, so I guess we can skip it. Then on the 16th, we have another familiar one, the first book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. This one I do plan on reading because I have ordered my special edition from the Broken Binding. But I've heard about this series gonna be on a more complicated side. The characters, the terms, the magic, the plot are quite a lot to digest. So what am I thinking here about this series is that this would always be on my physical TBR but not urgent to complete. I really want to read more clear other epic fantasy series first before jumping to this one, so I can come fully prepared for this awesome complicated world. The next one is an interesting one and I don't think much people talk about it, and it is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. This one is published 50 years ago and it is about romance and fencing. When the most beautiful girl in the world marries the handsomest prince of all time and he turns out to be, well, a lot less than the man of her dreams. This one sounds actually quite fun and interesting and easy to read, so I may put this one on my TBR. To be honest, I think we have covered quite a lot of popular epic fantasy series. For me, the rest will be like series that I haven't heard of, so I don't think I can share much about them. So instead of looking at them one by one, maybe we can just look at those that catch our attention, shall we? 23rd, I'm not surprised, the second book of the Stormlight Archive, Words of Radiance. Second book of a series? Why you can do that here? And then on 24th, the first book of The Broken Empire, Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. I have this series on this shelf here, but I doubt it is the best representation of his work. Looking across this whole list, majority of the books got like over 4-star rating, but Prince of Thorns only got 3.84 average rating. Still a decent score, but I don't think it is enough to put you in this place, to be fair. If you ask me, maybe we should replace Prince of Thorns with The Book That Wouldn't Burn by the same author. I think many people who have read both series, they would say that the library trilogy has got better in terms of the character and the writing. Maybe we should start a campaign here and start voting for The Book That Wouldn't Burn and replace or kick out Prince of Thorns. The Color of Magic, first book of the Discworld by Tara Pratchett, is on the 29th. I really want to check this series, Discworld, out because I have heard a lot of reviews about how fun, how humorous this series is gonna be, but it is just too long. I know you can just follow one particular storyline and keep on reading it and it won't affect other characters in the same world. This series is always described as fun, imaginative. So if I run out of palette cleanser to cut through all these chunky epic fantasy books, this series is always on my list. Under it, we have the first book of the Red War series, and I think both are kind of on the same vibe, but this one is about the mice and rat fighting. I know it sounds weird, but it's gonna be fun, right? This one, I will keep an eye on. What is this cover? And then on the 37th, the Dragonbone Chair, the first book of the Memory, Sorrow and Thorns series by Ted Williams, which happens to be the next TBB fantasy sub-books. I will definitely check this series out when I get my copies, and I think the last volume is just too long and they have to split it into 2 volumes. And I also have faith in the Broken Binding choice. I have faith. And then on the 39th, we have Fool's Errand, the first book of the Tiny Man series by Robin Hobb. I don't think you can jump to this series if you want to start your Robin Hobb's journey, so why are you here? I'm really confused by the standard. We have 5-series trilogy already. Never ending story. Story. Shame. 43rd, we have Wallbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I did enjoy this one, and I think it is a great starting point if you want to jump into the Cosmere. You have interesting magic system called the Breath, funny characters, and really unexpected turns of events. And we are just missing the sequel. And then on 48th, we have the first book of the Light Ship Traders, Ship of Magic by who? By Robin Hobb, the 3rd time we have seen her on this list. I think this one is slightly different from the last 2 because for this series, you can jump to this directly and enjoy the multi-POV story rather than just following fits. I think this one is like the title About the Sea, and we're gonna have some more detailed background information about this world. And then on 58th, we have the first book of Throne of Glass series called Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This YA, really? I love this series, but the first book, it just like feels to me the weakest. I am on the 5th book now, and I do agree that the whole series is getting better, is improving in terms of the writing, and Sarah J. Maas also understands what the readers want and give it to them. But I just find the first book is like literally the weakest among all. And then why on earth we would see The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe on the 67th? We have the whole series on top 10 already. I think we should stop here because I am a bit confused and things are getting a bit out of control. I have no idea how Goodreads is gonna manage this list, and we have seen lots of repeated works. Some may even be a troll. So I don't think it is like a good reference if you are running out of epic fantasy series to read. But if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you don't want to miss any content from me, make sure you have subscribed to my channel. I'll see you real soon. Goodbye.